Welcome to the Explosive Strength Podcast with Jared Bidney. On today's episode, I have Mike Bartos with me. Mike makes Strongman equipment, and we're just going to get in to see how he does and how he's gotten into the field.
All right, so I've been involved in strength conditioning in some capacity pretty much my entire life. When I was a young kid, I was an overweight kid, junior high, and my brother was always really talented athletically, and I kind of wanted to follow the same path. So started working out on my own. Really no rhyme or reason for anything that I was doing as a young person, besides I knew I needed to lose some weight. So started working real hard and dropped a bunch of weight. And then by the time I got to high school, I needed to take the opposite course because I was the skinny guy, and it was time to start putting some weight back on and getting strong. A lot of the stuff that I did early on when I started training was just pushing myself as hard as I could, without really no guidance or anything like that. But as time went on, I figured, well, there has to be someone out there that could help me, or some type of information where I could start adding some type of structure. And thank God for the internet, because I got, as soon as I started reading about training, it turned into about a 5 or 6 hour a day obsession.
Yeah, because once you started learning, you didn't realize how much you didn't know.
Absolutely, and once I started learning, I started getting strong, and and I didn't realize, like, I always just associated the harder I pushed, the more I did, with the more progress I would make. And when I started to couple that with actually, putting some training philosophy behind that, I started getting pretty strong real quick. And so I've been involved in some capacity with training, pretty much since I've been a junior high kid.
Did you play high school football?
I did play high school football. And so, I played sports in high school. I was a pretty good athlete. I wasn't, any type of a real superstar or anything like that. I think my role as an athlete when I was a young kid was just somebody that worked really hard. I knew I wasn't going to be an All-American type kid or anything like that. And so, I made sure I pushed as hard as I possibly could, tried to be a good teammate. And but for me, I lived for the off season.
Yeah,
I loved the off season when I was a kid.
Yeah,
Trust me, I wanted to.
That's where I was too.
Oh, I wanted to win. I wanted to push real hard and do all that kind of stuff. And I really loved and cared about my teammates as a young person. But as soon as that off season hit, I knew it was training time, and that's what I look forward to the most.
Awesome. Did you carry it on to college, or how?
Well, I decided I had an opportunity to play at some smaller schools, and I was heavily involved in powerlifting at the time.
Okay.
And so I just decided I was going to go to school, do some lifting,
Yeah.
and that's what I was going to do from there.
Now, where are you from?
I grew up in Ohio. I grew up in Hubbard, Ohio, which is right outside of Youngstown, about 50 miles south of Cleveland.
Okay.
And been there pretty much my entire life.
Browns fan?
I tell you what, I've gotten so busy, I'm like no sports fan.
Oh.
I can't even tell you the last time I watched a game.
Yeah.
And so, we keep a pretty tight schedule. We have 2 businesses, and so I devote the first half of my day, probably from about 6:30 or 7 until 3, working for our equipment business, and then I usually start training people at the gym around 3:30 and do that from 3:30 until 9 or so.
Okay.
And so watching sports has been put on the back burner.
Back burner.
Yes, sir.
All right, so tell people, I didn't really get into it. Tell people what you do and how'd you get into it?
Okay, so obviously I have the gym, and so there's the training side of it, but a little bit more on the equipment side. We build. I always like to say our business is kind of like, as a strength coach, I feel like my job is to fill gaps, get people and fix problems for them. And as a business, it's kind of the same. So in my own gym, I see needs that we have, needs that athletes have, and then I build for that. And after we use it for a little while, and if I think it's something that's going to be useful for other people, then we release the product.
Okay.
And so I would say our business right now, and we're going to be expanding and doing quite a bit more, is really filling gaps.
Yeah.
Creating products that aren't out there yet, and original things that are a representation of our experience and our needs in the gym, that kind of permeate into other people's facilities.
Yeah, that stone of skill you've created is pretty neat. Is that your first piece?
That was the first piece. I worked on quite a few other things before that.
Yep. How'd you come across it?
Well, we were doing some stone training one day, and I had this young training partner, and he was real strong kid, but just getting started. And we had a 240-pound stone in the gym, and then after the 240, we went up into the low 300s. And so we were training, and he lifted the stone up, kind of twisted to the side, hit the yoke, dropped it, it hit the concrete, broke in half. And he goes, so what am I gonna do? And I told him, well, I guess like I'm gonna have to buy some molds and we'll make some lighter stones and all that. He goes, well, how long is that gonna be? was like, well, we'll probably get the molds in a week or two, and then we'll have to do it. So probably about 3 weeks. And he goes, man, I really wish there was some way that we could just like do it now. We're like, I don't want to have to wait. And so, ironically, the intention was to do something that was fast, and then it took about 3 years of trial and error before we ended up finding the exact way to make the adjustable stone. And so the goal was to be able to put one stone in the facility that didn't eat up a bunch of floor space, where multiple people could train on it, where if you load it up just like a barbell, if you load it up, that's exactly what it's going to weigh. You can make some type of logical progression on it rather than making big, huge jumps. And so I tell you, making the thing, before this, I had no experience in fabrication.
What'd you do before this?
I've been a gym owner. I started saving money to open up my own gym when I was 14, and so I opened up the gym at 22.
Okay.
And so we started off real small. I started off with some great kids.
Yeah.
And I think one of the reasons why my gym has success, and I try my best for the athletes in the gym and the young kids in the gym, and I really love doing it, but I think one of the reasons why the gym's had success is because the foundation of the kids we started with. I started with only 7 or 8 boys, but they were like the best 7 or 8 boys you could ever ask for. And so the kids that they brought with them were a lot like them.
Yeah.
And then I think if it started off differently, it could have been different.
Yeah.
And so I got a lot of things. I see these kids now, and
has the mindset of the kids changed lately?
Well, I'll tell you, it's a little bit. I mean, it's fortunately, I think sometimes in the private sector, I get spoiled sometimes, because if you have kids come into the gym and you have families that are bringing kids into the gym, generally families that do more with their kids, like things that they don't have to be doing.
Yeah.
They're raising their kids the right way and trying to push them to do more and all that stuff. But I will say, as far as competitiveness, there's been a little bit of a decline, where, don't get me wrong, I still have the staple of the kids are really good, but when we first started out, and that wasn't that long ago, it was only 8 years ago, I like having for kids just
it's
for...
gone by quick.
It's gone by quick, but I like having competitions for kids, particularly at the end of training sessions. Something fun to do, and I think just daily competition builds a good mindset for kids. And when we first started out, I would have kids that would come to the gym. If they lost at a competition, they were fired up. Everyone was mad if they lost. And I've had some kids, recently, they'll get beat at something, and it's kind of like, ugh. And I have to pull them off to the side and explain to them, I know it's a push-up contest, but you've got to win. Yeah. So, the mindset's changed a little bit. I got a lot of good kids, but overall, I have seen a little bit of a difference. What about you?
I started off when I opened the gym when I was 27, I believe.
Okay.
Maybe 26 or 27. I actually had stored stuff in my garage. I started off in the garage.
Mm-hmm.
So I had some equipment the University of Memphis gave me. Had some old dumbbells, some bars, and what happened, I just kept buying stuff. I was an erosion control manager, actually, and so I started doing erosion control after I left college. I graduated from the University of Memphis with an exercise science degree, and I come out doing erosion control because I had to have a job. So we moved from Memphis to Georgia. That's where I started the erosion control. Once I got there, it's in construction, so sometimes construction stuff's seasonal, or you get a job here and then they move on somewhere else. And so I got laid off, and I had some of this equipment in my garage, and I just kind of started growing the gym from the garage.
Mm-hmm. I think that's a good story, a great story. I think it's one of those things where that's a good approach. Start as small as you possibly can, as little overhead as possible.
Yeah, I started
and grow from there.
With free equipment that the University of Memphis gave me, but I didn't even intentionally start a gym. I've always worked out since I was about 12 years old. Like I said earlier, was watching Rocky movies, and I knew to be better I had to train. And so I was just walking around. I didn't even go to college to go to college. I went to college to play football, and I let the school dictate what I was going to kind of do. And I didn't grow up in you got to go to college, you got to go to study, and all this other stuff. You had to go to school, had to graduate high school, and that's about it. So I knew I wanted to play football, and I went off to school, played football for the University of Memphis. And once I got there, like I said, I've always trained since I was 12, so I had to work out that day. That's my workout day. You don't mess that up. And so I was walking around campus. I went to our university weight room and doors were locked. Couldn't get in. Went to campus facility was locked. I went to the basketball facility, locked. So I was walking around campus to where I knew our girls practiced. And I walked downstairs and I saw this guy come out of this room, played football with him. And I saw a rack in the room. I said, "Hey man, I need to go work out." He said, "You can't go in there." I said, "Why not?" He goes, "It's a lab." I said, "No, it's a weight room." He goes, "No, it's a lab." He said, "It's a biomechanics lab." I looked at him like a monkey doing a math problem because I didn't have a clue what a lab was, exercise science or anything. So that Chris Moore, he's recently passed, he was doing Barbell Shrug podcast.
Absolutely.
And that's the guy that got me into exercise science. And so he'd come out, I'd be in the weight room at the football facility sometimes, and I'd be working out. He said, "Bibb, you got to quit doing that bodybuilding stuff." And I was a pretty strong dude as an incoming freshman. I was a 365 bencher at 190 pounds, and I could power clean over 300. And so I was like, "What the heck is this dude talking about? Quit doing this bodybuilding stuff." And I was like, buzz off, because a lot of other people would say, like, "He don't know anything, he's just a meathead." So I'm a meathead too, just sitting there working out, doing my own thing. And I didn't realize I had to start learning. So he introduced me to Louis Simmons, and at that time when Elite Fitness just started up. And so I'd get on Elite Fitness site, start researching, then I started learning stuff. Man, I didn't know this. So then I dug deeper, I didn't know that. Then I'd go study exercise science with professors. I started learning more about muscles and nervous system, how all that worked. And so then I just got really intrigued in that. Then that Christmas, he introduced me, he gave me some old West Side VHS tapes. And I heard Louis talking for the first time, and Louis talked so fast and a lot of science and stuff behind it, and I was like, geez, I really don't know anything.
Yeah.
I got so strong to a point thinking I knew stuff when I really knew nothing.
That's like, I hear a lot of people, and I think that's a common thing when you're young, or not even necessarily when you're young, but when you're just starting out, you have this idea for the first couple of years that you know a lot more than you actually do.
Yeah.
And then when you start diving in, you start realizing, man, there's a long way to go. And I think even a lot of the people that I met that are the most experienced in this still have that mindset of, man, I got a long way to go.
Yeah.
And there's always more. You always get a little bit stronger. You always get a little bit smarter. But yeah, it's a similar experience that you and I had where once I got bit and I said, man, I need to know more about this. It was just an obsession. But like even with Elite FTS and the West Side articles and the VHSs and all that stuff, that was my childhood. And where a lot of people would come home and they'd watch a game or watch a sitcom on TV or something like that. I was watching the West Side VHS's Brent Meixel. I don't know if you remember Brent Meixel. Brent was the all-time world record holder in the squat. I think he squatted, he broke, I know Goggins, I think, was the first guy to break 1100, but I think Meixel squatted maybe 1143 or 1127 or something like that. He was a world record holder for a while. But his training DVD, it was the same deal, printing all the articles off and stuffing them in my books at school and reading nonstop. And so I think that's a similar experience that people share. There's something about it that once it gets rolling, you can't walk away from it.
I always went to the weight room better at football, then I went to school and played football. And it's kind of accidentally found exercise science kind of weird. After I graduated, I graduated college with an exercise science degree. Then a month later, I had my CSCS. Then I really couldn't find a job.
Yeah.
And so I started working at a recreation center in Memphis. Then I worked for the recreation center. I worked for Velocity, and I worked for the Redbirds all at the same time. I had 3 jobs at once. Then I met my wife. She had 3 kids, and we just picked up. And Memphis at that time was getting pretty bad, so we moved to Georgia. So I had to have a job. So I got in erosion control, and did erosion control probably for about 2.5 years. Got laid off, and had all this stuff in my garage. And I knew stuff about training, and I've always wanted to help people. I think that's the biggest thing is even when I was in high school, I would try to help people. They saw how strong I was, so I was going to try to pass my knowledge on to them to help them be better. And so then we started to have people come over to our garage, and I told my wife, man, this is kind of creepy. You don't want to be that guy that has these kids come over to your garage and work out. So we started thinking about things, and I knew I wanted a sciencey type name for explosive mechanics. I didn't even know even how to start gym, so I just grabbed the dictionary. I knew I wanted some type of mechanics or biomechanics or some stuff like that I've learned. And so I looked up the definition for biomechanics and it said C mechanics. And mechanics is a branch of mathematics dealing with bodies, emotions, and tendencies to motion. Well, heck, that's kind of what I'm doing. You know, we're human bodies, and so mechanics can be either mechanical or it can be human. And so I said, okay. And then I just didn't want to be mechanics, and I still get confused with mechanic shops nowadays. But it's explosive describes the type of mechanics we've been trying to be. We want to be explosive athletes. We don't want to be big, bulky people. We just need to be smaller and explosive. And so then the logo kind of ties itself together with the barbell being between explosive mechanics. You've got to be strong to have explosive mechanics. And so the logo was just designed by the guy next door to me that owned a sign shop that I didn't even know. Once I put it all together, it's like, man, it's kind of funny how things work out. And so then we started in 2008. In April of 2008, and I got in training people. Then I started having to learn a lot more than I did because I had to get results now.
So with you, and you told me quite a bit about the gym yesterday, and a lot of these kids you have. So you got guys that are fairly small high school kids benching 400 pounds, 405 pounds for reps. What, as far as training philosophy goes, when athletes come into your gym, is it set up where you have one-on-one clients that are coming in? Is it more of an open gym setting? And then, monitoring training for these athletes, if they come in on day one, say they're the average kid that could come in and, they're not super strong, maybe not even ready for the barbell yet, where they can't do a push-up or something like that. How does your approach differ, and how the heck do you get these kids so strong?
Well, the strongest kids in the gym usually start out some of the youngest, and they've been there for years. So if a kid cannot do a push-up, well, I don't even test the push-up first. I throw them straight to the bar.
Okay.
If they can't do the bar, I move down. And so then I've got to, if I look at them and I realize that I don't think they're going to do the bar, I've got a little bar that starts off at 20 pounds.
Okay.
And so I do have a 20-pound bar, then I progress them from there. And so it's kind of conjugated, non-linear.
Okay.
And everybody has their own folder. So like if you were to come to the gym, you'd have your own folder. And we have workouts written in everybody's folder. That way I'm not looking through. If someone gives me a notebook, I'm like, holy crap, this is miserable. There's pages over time. And so I create these little stickers. It's got the workout of the day on it. And for you, like you come in and I write your bench numbers, your exact sets and reps, not including the warm-up. You got to figure out how to warm up on your own. Okay. We'll have groups come in at 4, for a typical afternoon, they'll come in at 4, 5, 6, or 7. And 8 o'clock time is usually dedicated to like a team time. So if I get a softball team or a volleyball team that wants to come train with me, team training is dedicated to the 8 o'clock time slot.
Okay.
But yeah, so the other day I had 33 people in there one time.
Yeah, so that's busy. Yeah.
But at 5 o'clock, that was at 4, I had 33. At 5 o'clock, I probably only had 18. And so then 6 o'clock, I probably had another 18. 7 o'clock, I probably had 12.
Okay, so when people are coming in, are most of those people doing the same workouts that day, where they're training together?
Well, looks like chaos because everybody's not always doing the same thing. We always may start. I've got people what I call combo people, which don't come every day. So we got to make sure we get our bench and our squat in that day. Then I'll have people that if they come every day, we're going to mainly bench Monday, Wednesday, Friday, squat Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday. And those are dedicated upper body and lower body days. Okay. So for the people that do come every day, you'll see those will be the freaks in the end. I do have some freaks that have only come 2 times a week for years. I did have a kid coming 2 times a week for years. Years since he's in 4th grade. He's now a junior. He's also benched 400 as a high school. So we'll start off maybe with the main lift. So if you got a combo day, and I know I'm just up by that, we all may start off with bench. Then you may go to squat. Well, my bench person will probably go to accessory work and work on accessories for the bench and things like that. And where the combo person may come in bench, come in squat, then he may get some accessories for floor, get some accessories for upper. And so then they'll just come back whenever they come back.
Nice. So with these kids coming in, so you get the kids that, I know you touched on earlier about, attitude and and competitiveness changing over time. I mean, I'd imagine the environment has to be pretty good in the gym where you got to, I know, at least in my facility, when I get some of my boys that have been around for a long time, like the other day I had a college football boy that came back and, you know, he's squatting 700 pounds for reps. It kind of, I think it lights a fire. I mean, when younger kids are in there and they see somebody that's made that much progress.
People, yeah.
And so with you having a lot of strong guys in the gym, you know, what's the general attitude with the kids like? Is it a pretty intense environment? And, you know, you asked me earlier if I've seen any change over the years. Do you see any fluctuations up and down in your own facility?
Yeah, it's some of the kids nowadays don't have the drive, and I don't know if it's because the parents are not making them do. Like some of the kids that have had been super freaks, their parents made them go to the gym whether the kid didn't want to or not. And now these kids are getting the opinion of whether if they like it or not. You know, I had some kids in the beginning that hated it, and their parents made them stick it out for a while, and they ended up really liking it. You know, I had some girls that hated coming. I had these volleyball girls hated coming. Now they're figure competitors. And so you never know what the gym would do. You know, like we was talking earlier, the gym can really help direct you along.
Absolutely.
For positive benefit, you know, and there's adversity in the gym. You know, it's not always fun. It's not always fun for some people going to work, but they got to get it done.
Yeah, absolutely. I think for young people, you know, everything somebody does in their developmental years is pretty much just, it's a microcosm of life. So, you know, I had probably about 3 or 4 years ago, I had like a light bulb go off in my head. I had this young lady, she comes from a wonderful family, and she came into the gym. And sometimes, you know, I think as an adult, you can get caught up in adult life of just like work and bills and like just running all day long and everything like that. And she was a young girl that played soccer. And she was, I think, probably in junior high at the time. And so she was trying to see how many times she could dribble a soccer ball off of her feet. And like she set a goal to do like 100 by the end of the summer. And I think she ended up exceeding 500 at the end of the summer. I don't know how much that transfers over to being a soccer player, but it's something that she really wanted to do.
It's dedication.
Well, and that's the thing. She came in the one day after she did 500, and she said, "Coach, you got to see this." And so she pulled this video up, and I got like tons of people in the gym, and I'm super busy, and it was probably 5 or 6 minutes. And she held it up, and I watched the whole thing, and I said to her, bouncing this ball up meant everything. Like, meant everything to her. I mean, you know, if you bounced a ball off your foot for 6 minutes, you would not hold a phone in front of somebody's face and make them watch the entire thing. But it was so dang important to her. And a light bulb went off in my head where I said, man, you know, an adult could sit back and they can go, well, it's only sports. It's only football. It's only lifting a weight. But for that kid, it is the most important thing they have going on. And how they handle that is going to be how they handle everything the rest of their life. If you can't, you know, bring some intensity and bring some focus and get the job done in high school football, work hour number 70 when you're 24 years old probably is not going to happen. And if it does happen when you're building your life, you're going to stink at it. And, you know, and so it's a microcosm for life. When I get kids, I say one of the things that I'm most proud of kids for when they come into my gym is when they're named a team captain. And I say, you're on the right path because your peers, the people that voted for you, see you as the leader. They see you as the one that's going to be there every day, that's going to get the job done. And for me, you know, I love training. I love the training side of it. I love seeing people get stronger, but there's nothing better than when you see somebody and you say, man, at 18 years old, this kid is equipped to build a career for themselves, you know, and not at the moment, but in the future. Be a good dad, be a good husband, be a good business owner, be a good person. All they have to do is take the stuff that they're currently doing and just spread it out into everything else the rest of their life. And for me, that's the biggest victory because the kids that are going to play professionally and get a paycheck are few and far between. But the kids that learn how to suffer a little bit, you know, I think that's a misconception.
Suffer and compete.
You know, you touched on Rocky earlier, you know, when you were talking about the Rocky movies, and I was, you know, same way growing up as a kid watching them all the time. But I said there's one thing in the Rocky movies and those types of movies, I think, with young kids, that kind of confuses kids a little bit sometimes. You know, every one of those movies has a training montage. And when it starts to train, the music's playing, you know, and Rocky's running, all these people behind him. And I think as you go on, you start to realize there's not going to be a crowd of people behind you. There's not going to be music playing. A lot of days you're not going to feel like doing something. And success is painful. You know, I think that if you can get to a point of your life where especially with these young people, where you can teach them when you are uncomfortable. I'm not saying you should be seeking out pain, but when you are uncomfortable in situations and you're pushing yourself, if you could find enjoyment in that, because that's what earning something feels like.
Yeah.
It's uncomfortable to earn something, and if you could get a kid into that position, you have success. When you have adults that bring their child to the gym, and like you touched on, they're like, well, we really know you need this, but do you like it? Well, that's not a question, because if you know that a kid wants to be an athlete,
Yeah.
and they need something, whether they like it or not is irrelevant.
Yeah.
And just tell the kid, hey, if you have to be honest with yourself. If you say you want to be a great athlete, but you're not willing to do the things that are required to be a great athlete,
Yeah.
maybe you really don't want to be a great athlete. Let's not waste our time. Find what you want to do.
10-year-olds, their parents say, hey, these 10-year-olds want to go play football for the University of Georgia, or they want to be a Georgia Dog, but they don't keep the kid consistent. Well, your kid's not going to be very good at sport if you don't keep the kids are learning the consistency from the parents. If the parents are not holding these kids accountable for what they say their dreams are, they'll never reach their dreams because they're not taking the proper steps to get from point A to point B.
Absolutely. I'm all for kids getting to choose a lot in their life. If a kid is absolutely miserable playing sports, and they hate it every day, okay, and they should not play sports.
Yeah.
They just should not do it. Okay, you have to have some fun and you have to have some enjoyment, but while seeking out that success, you have to understand that there's going to be things that aren't fun and enjoyable. And I always look at it like this. I tell kids, if a kid comes to my gym and they complain about football practice, and that's an everyday thing, they come in and say, oh, it was so hot, and it was so uncomfortable, and our coach said this, and our coach said that, then we got to run afterwards, and I hate it. I tell them the same thing every time. I just look at them and say, quit. If you hate football, and you hate every day of it, and you're miserable doing it every day, and you're going to complain about it, what are you missing out on?
Yeah.
Are you missing out on something that you love? Maybe it looks nothing like football. So I think it has to be something, especially when you're young, that you do get some enjoyment from. But at the same time, a percentage of that work is going to be some stuff you don't enjoy. But the end goal should be something that brings enjoyment to you.
Yeah, and I've seen, I believe a lot of these kids, you never know what anybody can be, but I do believe a lot of the young athletes can be what they want to be if they put the time in. I've had 6 people that have come to the gym as high school sophomores and now play professional sports.
Yeah,
And
it's
so,
incredible.
Some of them that had even started the gym was as bad with athletic as a sheet of paper. Could not move, could not jump, do anything. Goes off to get a scholarship later on. And some of those kids made me realize, holy cow, this kid, and I've had parents that knew the kid would come to the gym saying, he's not the same person anymore. And I kind of got that stigma, well, not everybody's going to do this. And a lot of people can do a lot of different things if they put a lot of time in. You may not be the greatest in the world, but you can be a lot better than what you originally are. Like I've had some kids say, Jared, I'm not genetically gifted. I was built this way. I've got a kid that pitches for Stanford. He's got one of the highest rated force developments on the team. And he's a baseball pitcher, but he's 95. He's not a very tall dude, I only think 5'10".
Yeah. Usually when somebody says something about genetics to me, I think to myself, like, man, keep telling yourself that, and you're probably going to stink.
Yeah.
And I think a lesson that I learned early on when I was training, and I didn't know I was learning it, okay, but it was something that the experience I had when I was later on allowed me to extract this. But I think I became strong as a young person, and not realizing that the lack of gifts that I had. I think I unintentionally I surrounded myself as a young person with really strong images. I was obsessed with powerlifting, and I saw guys like Andy Bolton, and those guys were like my heroes when I was a kid. I didn't watch NFL football; I was watching WPO powerlifting meets, and as a young person, I constantly had these strong images, and I wanted to be like those guys. And not realizing, Andy Bolton's more gifted than I am. As an adult, I could realize that. Andy Bolton's, best of all time at deadlifting, and one of the best powerlifters of all time. But in my head as a kid, I thought, man, there ain't no difference between, I'm just going to go and I'm going to work every day.
Yeah.
And you get a lot better. And I think, there's nothing wrong with having those dreams, but the way you see yourself is going to dictate the type of effort that you put in is you see yourself as somebody that's just normal and average, you're going to put that type of effort in. But if you see yourself as someone that's capable of exceptional things, then you end up going and putting that type of effort in that you need. And self-image really matters. And so when young people come in and they give me that genetic stuff, we usually have a conversation.
My wife's trying to leave me.
Yeah, is that the wife?
Yeah. So, well, I guess we got to go catch a flight, Mike.
Well, you got to go catch a flight. I know we got a little bit of a late start this morning, but listen, I'll tell you, after talking to you yesterday, I'm really interested in you. I think the success that you're having with young people is incredible, and I'd love to stay in touch either through email or through phone, pick your brain a little bit more, and hopefully we can learn a few things from each other.
Help each other out. I think this was all about. I've always tried to make these kids better than what I was. And so, if you would, just give a shout out where people can find you.
Okay, you can find us on social media. Instagram is MB Power Center. It's MB Power Center on Facebook as well. Our phone number is 330-503-8141, and email is mike@mbpowercenter.com. I love talking training and about our equipment, so if anyone ever wants to get in touch, just give us a call, and I'd be happy to help you out.
Yeah, Mike makes some really great equipment. We even have a couple pieces at our gym.
Yep, yes, sir. Thank you. We appreciate that.
I want one of those stones of steel.
Well, thank you very much, man. Thank you.
Anyway, hey, thanks y'all for watching. Thanks for listening. You can find me at Explosive Mechanics on Instagram. Info@Explosive Mechanics is the email. Twitter is @ExplosiveMEC. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening.
Hey, have a safe trip, Jerry.
Thanks, Mike.
Yes, sir. You have a great time, buddy. Thank you.